Hello, everyone, and welcome to another CMSWire webinar. My name is Olivia Maeda, and I'm here today to help answer any general or technical questions that you may have. But before we get started, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, Fix the Content Bottleneck, Build a Better Web Ops Strategy. Here's today's timing breakdown. These numbers are just rough, so don't hold us to these. At any point during today's webinar, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to submit those using the Q&A tab on the right side of your screen. You can chat with your fellow attendees by clicking the public chat that is also on the right side of your screen. And we also have a few resources that have been made available to you on the Docs tab. Here's a little bit about us here at CMSWire. We were founded in 2003 and cover the primary topics that you see here on this slide. You can read our great content and register for upcoming conferences and webinars all by visiting www.cmswire.com. And I want to thank today's sponsor, Pantheon, for making today's webinar possible. Pantheon is the platform for websites that deliver extraordinary performance, running sites in the cloud for customers, including Okta, Google, the Home Depot, Pernod Ricard, and Doctors Without Borders. Modern organizations choose Pantheon to empower their digital teams to continuously optimize, innovate to deliver more engaging digital experiences. Using Pantheon's WebOps platform, developers, marketers, and IT are empowered to work together to develop, test, and release website changes quickly and reliably, knowing their sites will remain stable and secure, even during the biggest traffic spikes. You can learn more at www.pantheon.io. All right, and now it is time to introduce our speakers. Today I'm joined by Lucy Hitz, the Director of Product Marketing at Pantheon, Yvonne Stegich, Chief Executive Officer at Ten7, and Ellie Fanning, the VP of Marketing at Lullabot. All right, and with that, I will pass it off over to you, Lucy.
Thank you. Excited to be here with you all today. We're going to cover a lot here and really excited to get to our Q&A with Ellie and Yvonne. But first, we're going to cover state of content workflow in 2025. Where are we? This is obviously a huge and probably endless topic, but kind of our small perspective on it. We're also then going to cover the three most common workflow breakages that we see our customers and their cross-functional teams dealing with and how to fix them, some ideas for how to fix them. Then I'm going to live demo. So, pray to the demo gods for me. We're going to publish a blog post in real time right from Google Docs. And then we'll have the Q&A with Yvonne and Ellie to really hear from them on their lived experience working with customers and thinking about the content workflow kind of breakages and solutions today. And before I kind of jump into our content, I want to level set a little bit more on who Pantheon is. We're the unified platform for Drupal, WordPress, and Next.js. So we help our customers eliminate friction. We help them collaborate seamlessly across their web teams with multi-dev environments. We help them stay secure, but also agile across as large a portfolio of sites as they need to for this kind of all-in-one dashboard feel and experience. And, I think the quote here from David at Hubbard's puts it really beautifully. Pantheon's a one-stop shop, website management as a service, and really increases efficiencies. As we work with customers, obviously the end deliverable, the end product is making sure that their websites are performing at the level they need them to and providing the best user experience at the end of the day for the web visitors. So we help our customers get to that place as they deliver those experiences. But as we've kind of gone on this journey with our customers and provided this really stable, secure, agile foundation for their sites and their web strategy, we've uncovered a few other problems that are happening that kind of extend far beyond the web piece, like when the content actually goes live on your website. So as we've worked with so many organizations, we've come across one friction point again and again. There's really a huge disconnect between where content is created, edited, approved by cross-functional stakeholders, which is usually in Google Docs or Microsoft Word, and where content is published. And this really leads to a feeling by many that their CMS has a barrier to entry. It's disconnected from broader workflows and ultimately holding their organization back from being as successful as they could be. 37% of Earth's population uses Google Docs to create and collaborate on content. That's 3 billion active users. I honestly think that this is probably a more conservative estimate, but it's also pretty insane. That stats from 2022, so likely higher now. But 84% of tech leaders still say their existing CMS is holding them back in areas including limited access to make changes, difficulty adding new data and content types, difficulty integrating the CMS with other systems. And we hear the same concern from most non-technical employees that need to get their content live on a company website, whether it's blogs, documentation, landing pages, you name it. The next kind of key issue in the state of the content workflow today is too many tools. So organizations are, wasting spend on redundant tools that kind of span across different parts of the organization. And I'll touch on that a little bit more in the next slide. Developer productivity loss, so needing to frequently switch between tools and tasks. And this isn't just for devs, this is also for, I think, anyone who is working on the internet, the non-technical employees as well. Marketing underutilization, so marketers are really not using the full stack they own. And then, as I kind of alluded to, this toggle tax and fragmentation of going to multiple locations and having to kind of squeeze yourself into systems that may not be built or designed for you. And so this is the great dev marketing disconnect that I'm sure many have experienced. So there's kind of this disconnect between dev and marketing teams, and that's exacerbated by tool sprawl. So marketers are in their MarTech stack, developers are in their dev stack, and then these workflows and data become more fragmented and misaligned. And there's a desire to bring it together, but a clunkiness and heaviness and training weight to anything that sort of does or has historically promised to. And then the final piece, which is AI, the term on the tip of everybody's tongue. And so, this is kind of a very crude maturity curve, but, I think probably all of us are in some way, shape, or form using AI in individual tool usage. So we're using ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or whatever, Claude, like whatever your flavor is, to do things like write a better email or pull together a brief or, do those things that, are kind of more low-level tasks that AI can really help us with in being more efficient. Then there's the single player process transformation. So this is like, I have automated something, maybe I've automated an agent to like deliver a report to my desk every Monday with, like all of my leads and what I should be doing about them. And then there's the multiplayer process transformation. And I think this is where where the content workflow kind of traditional problem falls into, because it is multiplayer, it's multi-step, and it's a strategic transformation, but it can also feel, I think, very daunting. And I would say, I think most folks are in the, like level 1, level 2 stage. And as we think about what that level 3 looks like, I think, we can start to think about how can we improve a full process, like the content workflow process, from the ground up. So I'm going to field a poll now because I'm interested in how you all are using AI in your content workflow specifically. I think this is really interesting. We have the content creation. I think most of us probably are in some way, shape, or form using that, maybe to start a first draft. Then there's customer experience and support. So that's like, using AI augmented chatbots, AI agents on your site to help customers, give them more information. SEO, GEO, AEO, another phrase people use for this, and content optimization. Backend operations and workflow. So making sure your kind of MarTech and dev systems are bringing this in, analytics and reporting, and then other. And if you chose other, please put your other in the chat. I think that goes for all of the polls we're going to be fielding here today. I'll give it like 5 more. So it looks like most of us are content creation, kind of that, I think that like first stage of the maturity curve. Back-end operations and workflow, really interesting. Would love to hear if folks feel comfortable, if you want to put in the chat, what some of these things look like for you, especially back-end operations and workflow. I find that, really interesting. I think there's a lot of green space there. Okay, we can flip back to the content. So with all that said, and sort of as a foundation of, I think, where we are, and also, again, please use the chat if you have another perspective or something else you'd want to highlight here. I want to talk about the most common content workflow breakages that we see when we talk to customers. Like, where are the places where this really breaks down? But before I do, I want to field another poll. So what stage in your content workflow creates the biggest bottleneck for getting published? Is it in content strategy and planning? Is it in the creation? Is it in getting through those approval cycles? Is it in the actual publishing and deployment? Is it other? Yeah, I see a lot of the internal review and approval cycle, tale as old as time. Yeah, very common. That one's really pulling ahead here. Interesting. Okay, we can flip back to the slides, and if we can just, I'll go back to the next one here. So I've identified a few, and talking to a ton of customers, and thinking about this process. So I think the first is connecting where content is created to where it's consumed. So like, we have our content teams, they're working in Google Docs, Google Slides, or if you're Microsoft Shop, your PowerPoint, your Word, in their project management tools, in any kind of MarTech capabilities they have, like your Marketo or your Salesforce, if you're working with sales teams especially. And then you have your project or program management teams, so Jira, Asana, or Monday, or whatever systems they're using. Then you have your web teams and your GitHub, your CMS, your Pantheon, and then of course throughout all this, the communication layer that sort of underpins all of this is your Slack or your Teams or whatever your communication system is. Excuse me. So everyone's working in a different environment, and all of these pieces are necessary in getting the content from where it is developed to where it goes live. So like that connection is just very, very nebulous and topsy-turvy. And then approvals, full stop. So I think we saw this in the poll, right? We have the creator, then we have the manager and the cross-functional stakeholders, and then oftentimes we even have like the upper echelon leader who wants eyes on it and wants to approve something, especially a bigger item. And we see things getting stuck in areas like multiple channels for seeking approval, things get lost, not happening where most employees work. So there are notifications or asks for approval, but they're happening in a system where maybe a non-technical employee is not, or a project manager is not, or a dev is not. Approvals are happening in many different places, and maybe the person who's needs to approve or is involved in that process is not. That's not in the flow of their work. And then bandwidth up the chain. Again, tale as old as time. Leader wants to approve, but there's not. They have limited capacity for that. And then finally, the post-launch update, the famous post-launch update. So there's process and pain here. There's, hey, I found a typo, the image is formatted wrong. Why didn't I get a chance to look at this before it went live? Oh, we need to add this. This just came through, etc. There's kind of the process of the request intake, the triage, approval prioritization, et cetera, all those things. And then there's the pain of kind of context switching and interruption, version control chaos, scope creep on minor fixes, and then pressure and friction with stakeholders. I do want to just call out a few things that folks have said in chat. Around the backend optimization from AI. For me, I like to use, Malin says, for me, I like to use backend optimization and workflow for when I get stuck on a tutorial piece when doing something super technical. AI helps me find a solution for the problem to continue through making that. And then Shannon says, best AI hack is using Notion to summarize all my meeting notes for the week and give me all my action items. Really helpful. Please keep them coming. And also, any additional kind of frictions you see and breakages you see in the content workflow process as we go along, please add them in the chat. We have a blog post that our CEO wrote about how he thinks about websites and how CEOs think about websites and its importance and how they want to interact with what goes on your website. And I think this really kind of encapsulates the impact statement of what happens when your content workflow isn't working like it needs to. Some of your competitors will win not because they're better than you, but because they can move, improve, and inspire faster than you. So how do we accelerate this process and reduce the friction? Another way of putting that, so what can we do with all of this complexity and noise? So what I'm going to walk you through is, one solution, which is Content Publisher, which is in public preview now for anyone who wants to give it a try. But it essentially attempts to just simplify. So I think when we think about, additional tools, more tools, it just feels like bloat, more training, another tool that's going to force someone to get into another system and maybe never use again if it's not useful immediately. But imagine a world where you could, if you are the content creator, the marketer who's in your Google Docs, you could create, collaborate, get the approvals there if you wanted to, and then publish straight from Google Docs to your Drupal, your WordPress, your Next.js site with still security and guardrails and the governance that, obviously you need for for anything that's going public. So we don't need another heavy, complex, hard to navigate layer of technology. We really need a lightweight solution that kind of works between your trusted platforms. So the first thing I'm going to call out here is, like we've said, you can work within the Google Docs frame that you're familiar with, no new tools or training necessary, and collaborate in that space where everyone's already collaborating anyway. No more copy paste, clunky tooling, and you have your non-technical employees kind of getting to work in the Google Docs they know and love, and your devs are really striking the right balance between overseeing the process and empowering cross-functional stakeholders. So this doesn't mean that we let anybody publish to the website at any time and just kind of like open the floodgates, right? That's not going to work for any organization, whether you're a smaller one or an enterprise organization. So built in, we have approvals, we have different collections. So let's say I'm in charge of the Pantheon blog. I have the ability to publish right to the Pantheon blog, no approval required. But then there's another collection in Content Publisher where documentation lives for our site, or maybe a shopping part of our site, et cetera. And those are governed and owned by different individuals in the organization. So you have kind of the level of control and granularity you need there. And you also get to set approval workflows, meaning this cannot get published before it gets approved by this designated person in our dashboard. The third item on the slide, which I think is pretty important, is modern composable architecture. So this is kind of obviously I would say contemporary and future state of the web. So with Content Publisher, you can build a modern tech stack with this API first approach that connects to your WordPress, your Drupal, and Next.js, and you're still providing that authoring and collaboration experience for content marketing and editorial teams where they're used to working and want to work. Because I think we've all had the experience of where we kind of try to force a persona in our organization to work within a system they really don't want to, and it typically doesn't go super well and usually adds more pain to you as the person trying to force that. And then finally, AI-enriched content. So with Content Publisher, you can leverage all of Google Gemini's existing Gen AI features for content creation and editing, and Pantheon's Gen AI abilities to auto-generate metadata and supercharge your SEO, GEO, AEO, whatever term you want to use, to make it more easily navigable for visitors. So I'm going to show you what this, I'm kind of bring this to life for you a little bit in a demo, but just one way of thinking about it. So you have your creation wherever that is happening, your Google Docs. In 2026, we'll have a Microsoft Word version of this. But you really could input any content, including Notion. I saw interest in that in the chat into this. Content Publisher does the sort of production, sort of the bridge, and then you're delivered on, wherever you deliver your apps and your user experience. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the chat. Yes, Claude AI is really good for code. We're using it internally. Okay, so with that, I am going to live demo. I'm going to show you how this might look to publish a blog post live from a Google Docs, from Google Doc. So here we go. Hopefully my screen share will work. Okay, so I have this draft set up in my Google Docs already. I didn't want you to watch me create a blog post from a draft. That would probably go over our allotted time. But here you see I have an image. I'm going to accept, thank you. That is what I actually might keep that because I might have to download it to add it to here later. I'm going to accept this, all these. All of these. Oh, and I need to add a video. So I'm going to add a video link here. Did I copy paste it? No. Okay, great. And so now I'm going to, I have my post sort of all locked and loaded. This is, what I want it to look like. And I'm just going to click on my little Lightning Pantheon icon here. Something to note is once you've installed this, it doesn't have access to everything in your Google Workspace, just the doc you connected to. So I've connected it to my blog. I have my title. I have my slug here. This is where I can add components if I wanted to. It shows me how to add components like I just did for adding a video embed. You can set up your own web style. So if you have a certain styling for a page that you need it to follow, your admin can kind of preload that in here and you can make sure that, the format of the doc is following what it needs to look like on your page. But I want to kind of see a preview of what this will look like when it's live. So I'm going to look at a live preview here. And I'm going to look at okay, here we go. So I want to see what it's going to look like full screen. Okay, looking pretty good. Oh, nice. My video embed work. That was that component work I just did. Okay, looking pretty good. So I think, something we often hear from customers is the copy paste, the formatting never looks like what it's actually going to look like when it's live on your site. Then you have to go back in, try to figure out why the formatting is not working. And that's just something you no longer will have to deal with Content Publisher when you're working in the Google Docs format and looking at this live preview. This is exactly what it is going to look like when it's live. But I want to, let's see, what I want to do is, okay, preview. I want to edit my page metadata here. And maybe I will do that just I'll just do that directly from my Google Doc here. So here I'm editing my metadata. So here I already have my title, but if I didn't want to come up with my own title, we have AI built right in here. You can also have this just toggled on for auto suggest, but I can go here and say, hey, I want a new title based on the content of my blog post. So it's going to generate some suggestions. These are pretty good. These are pretty good. I like mine, so I'm going to keep it. And then it will even give you some ideas for a slug that it feels is going to rank well for AEO, GEOs, SEO, all the EOs. Pretty good, pretty good. Yep, it's read my doc and it's making really good guesses. Again, I'm going to keep my slug because I like it, but I need a meta description here. I need a description, so I'm definitely gonna let it do this. Let's see what it comes up with. This is pretty good. I'm going to use that. Okay, we got that locked and loaded. Now, I'm going to add I would, add my image. I'm not going to do that now because I don't think it's as relevant to you all. You don't need to see me go into brand folder and add that. But I'm going to add a tag. I'm going to have AI help me with this too. Okay, I think this one's relevant. This one's relevant. This one's relevant. This one's relevant. Yeah, this one's relevant. This one's relevant. The webinar is going to talk about content publisher as well. That's relevant. Okay. There we go. Lucy Hitz, Director of Product Marketing. 5 minutes. Date published. Save metadata. Okay, close and return to Google Docs. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and publish this now. Okay, I'm going to check one last time that everything is as I want it to be. I'm going to see exactly what it looks like, what it's going to look like. Yep, looks good. I'm going to go ahead and publish it. View my live content. And here we go. Here's my blog post live on the web. I will give you the URL once I stop sharing my screen and get back to the deck. But that's as simple as it could be, right? And if I get later a request from a stakeholder to add something, or a stakeholder says, oh, I actually went to the Google Doc and I just added some changes, I won't have to say, okay, wait, what's in my CMS and what's here in my Google Doc and kind of triangulate and do all of that. I can just simply accept the changes, add them in, implement as I want to within the Google Doc, do the thinking around, hey, should we include this or not, or should I reword that a bit? And then I just republish it with whatever changes I need to make post-launch. So you can see how this really helps us with, the primary problem, which is, hey, content creation, editing, collaborations all happening in a totally different system from where we're actually getting the content live. And the second piece, the approvals, right? You can have that happen in Google Doc, or you can have that happen through approval workflows set up in Content Publisher. And then finally, you have the ability to really easily and seamlessly revise post-launch, which so often we need to do. And that's just kind of a reality of working with people. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and go back to our deck. So the third poll I wanted to field, say it selfishly, is based on today's demo, how would you rate your likelihood of bringing this on board? So feel free to answer. And then also, tell me more about your impressions or what you felt in the chat. I would love to hear, like, what was really cool. What do you feel like we could improve on? Just would love to hear any feedback. And then I think our next step here is Q&A. And you can also try a free trial, by the way, of Content Publisher if you'd like to. We'll have a QR code at the end for that. But No pressure, just if you want to kind of see how this would actually work and kind of get a feel for it on your own, jump in there. But we can end the poll, I think, and I see one very likely. I love that. And shift into our Q&A. So before I kind of just start, hammering Ellie and Yvonne with questions, I'm going to let them give a little bit of their background and their own experience with this particular topic. So we'll start with Ellie, and please take it away.
Sure. Sorry, I was fumbling for the mute. So I'm Ellie Fanning. I'm the VP of Marketing at Lullabot. I've been at Lullabot for going on 9 years, which is crazy. So Lullabot we're a strategy, design, and development agency. So we're a team of experts in those areas. And yeah, we create future-ready platforms that integrate with modern technologies and evolve without costly rebuilds is the goal. My background is in marketing. I've been doing it for over 20 years, and I've been in tech for most of that now. Also been in publishing, medium publishing, and also entertainment. So yeah, I'll turn it over to Yvonne.
Thanks, Ellie. I think there's a slide for me too. Should I move it? Can I move it? There we go. Perfect.
I got it.
Thank you. I'm Ivan Stegic. I'm the founder and CEO at Ten7, and we are a Drupal agency whose mission is to make things that matter. And we generally think we're a better partner that focuses on our clients. We've been around since 2007, and we have over 100 years of design and Drupal experience. And we work on approximately the same kind of things that Lullabot does. So we're kind of a mini version of Lullabot in a way. But we are geared, we're very mission driven, and we look for mission aligned clients in education and healthcare and government and in nonprofits, kind of where all the Drupal verticals typically are. And we are a big fan of Pantheon and also of Content Publisher. So looking forward to hearing some of those Q&As.
Thank you both. So my first question for you is, where does the content bottleneck happen most often with clients in your experience? Start with Ellie.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I would say most of the bottlenecks, or the most common ones, that we see are like unclear roles, like who's allowed to submit a blog post, who can edit, who's supposed to review, who has the authority to actually publish. And I know that sounds really basic, but these are real issues that we actually encounter. So without the clear definitions, these roles can get pretty messy. And then I would also say the version control chaos that you mentioned earlier, Lucy. So with multiple channels, usually in publishing, there's multiple Google Docs happening. Which one is the final? Which one is the revision or the version that people should be working on? There's Slack, email, and other channels where versions are shared. And so there are times when reviewers are commenting on the wrong ones, on the wrong versions. So there's not really a source of truth until the content is published live. But is it the right version that's published? And then also I think the governance and quality control, accessibility, SEO, brand standards vary by editor. So, without a checklist or some sort of automated QA, consistency can suffer. And obviously, lack of governance can compromise quality and slow down approvals.
Yeah, I would add to that that I agree. I've seen the same sort of things that you have, Ellie. I would say that the sort of the editorial workflows that exist in modern CMSs are much better than they used to be, but still not as great as they could be. And so people who are using the CMS every day, it's mostly easy. Those marketers know exactly what they're doing. But if you have people that have to do approvals and they might not have used the tool in a long time, that kind of stuff really slows things down, especially when you're trying to get something live quickly. And then I think I saw someone mention in the chat that there's a disconnect between devs and marketers, and I would wholeheartedly agree. Like usually you are cool and fine with publishing something if you have access to CMS, but sometimes you need some weird permission, or a change or a new component that isn't live yet, and then you have to work with dev to try to get that done. That turns out to be a bottleneck. And I also want to point out, people are still doing copy and paste on CMSs, whether it's WordPress or Drupal or whatever it is. And there's when you do find that final version 3 real document, and you're able to copy out of it and paste it into a CMS, you still get all the wrong formatting. And that is problematic, and that slows things down too, I think.
Thank you. And I think, Yvonne, you brought this up, so maybe I'll let you kind of double click a little bit more into it. But tell me more about where you see the most pain for devs and marketing teams or content teams when it comes to getting content live on the site.
I mean, I think I kind of alluded to the idea that there might not be a thing that a marketer can do that they thought that might be able to do. And that's when they need to involve, or we need to involve, a developer. And so it's really expectations versus what's actually there. And if you're using the CMS and you're spending time in it on a regular basis, you might not know what the holes are if you don't use them very often. And so the bottleneck and the pain is actually having to talk to a dev if you're a marketer, and actually having to go through the process of submitting a ticket. And it's, I mean, as agencies, we try to make that as easy and seamless as possible, but it would be so much easier if you didn't have to do that. So trying to get something to live because there's a missing feature, that's problematic. I'd also say that there really isn't a good way of staging content on a website. We have, like I said, I think the tools that do editorial process in Drupal and in WordPress are much improved. They're much better. But there is a certain amount of technical requirement, technical expertise required by whoever's using the CMS to figure out how to save a draft that isn't live, that you can send to someone to preview, and then if it's cool or not, need to make changes to it, and then finally get that thing live. So doing that en masse and for more than one page at a time with a complex website is really hard. And I'm sort of alluding to the idea here that I think Content Publisher could potentially be a staging environment for content. Like, you could look at a group of Google Docs and you could go through approvals and you can do all of that staging in Google Docs or in Word eventually when that's live. And not actually have the complexities of having to log into a website. That's really appealing to me as something that I think is a good future for users of the CMS.
That's great, thank you. Ellie, anything you'd want to add there?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Yvonne just said. I think too, because not all reviewers even have access sometimes to the website. So that makes it very difficult. It forces you to then, deal with the multiple Google Doc situation. But I also think too, in terms of pain points with marketers and developers, there's also the timing issue. So, there could be, the marketing team, wants to publish something that's very timely, a call to action. But they can't because of the overly technical publishing tools being used. So then they have to go to a developer, and developers are inundated with tickets. And sometimes the timing is not working out very well based on their availability to help you get that published and what the marketing timeline is. And that often creates the friction as well. And so, I think also, additional organizational pain in communicating with independent authors. A lot of times authors, they like to do their own thing. And so sometimes, I think having something that's sort of, keeping everything together, like the governance aspect of it and keeping things consistent is where Content Publisher is actually really useful too, to help kind of squelch that pain of having rogue editors.
Ellie, your comment about the devs and marketing team timelines made me think of headless CMSs that use things like Next.js that sometimes don't have a easy way for a marketer to make a change, and they actually have to do a code change to get content out there, and they have to do a deployment, like that's painful too. And if you have a tool like Content Publisher, like that makes it a whole lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And really just being totally frank, when I'm working with leaders to get them to collaborate with me on content and write content and approve content, they're much more likely to do that through a Google Doc link that we collaborate on, that then I can show them like live preview, here's exactly what it's going to look like, and approve that and get that done more quickly and with less kind of back and forth or hesitation than if I shoot them a link to anything else, like any other system they're not super familiar with.
Yeah, like self-service is great in theory, unless you're like a CEO that doesn't have has 5 minutes to approve something and doesn't have time to figure out how to log into something.
Right, mm-hmm. right. And also just gets frustrated with the knowledge of a system that they're just not used to. So my next question is, for a typical blog post or article, how much time do you think Content Publisher shaves off the end-to-end publishing cycle from, final approval to the live URL?
I did a breakdown. I can take this. I actually.
Oh, thank God.
Kind of.
I want an exact number.
Well, I didn't have an exact number. Thanks, Ellie.
You're welcome. It's just an estimate, so don't get too crazy. So I didn't do it just from final approval, because I feel like once, especially if you're using Content Publisher, the final approval, you're basically just clicking and publishing. So I took it a little bit further, and I took it from the time that you actually get the first draft. So I built in like how much time, for us anyway at Lullabot, how much time, just the review process actually takes, how long people are reviewing. And sometimes, it could be 2 hours, but it could last like several days. I didn't go that deep. But overall, I estimated about from the time you get the first draft to the time that you actually publish live to the site takes about 7 to 8 hours. And that doesn't include generating images. That's just copy. And so I estimated that using Content Publisher actually shaved off about 25 to 30% of my time in that process.
Wow.
Which is significant. And I figured, I would assume that larger teams with lengthier, approval processes and review processes, that might even be a little greater. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential for it to be greater. It feels like that idea that they're using tools they're already experienced with and masters of and can use the approval process in Google Docs just kind of is almost a no-brainer. Kind of multiplies, right?
Yeah, I was going to say it's a multiplying factor. So for Ellie, that's the case. Then she has a team of however many content contributors, let's say. And yeah.
Thanks for the receipts, Ellie. That's awesome.
So can you share some specific use cases or scenarios where Content Publisher is a great fit in your opinion? This could be a question for both of you or just whoever feels comfortable taking it. Like one example I've heard from other folks is site migrations, that it can alleviate some of the burden there, but any other kind of specific use cases?
Go ahead, Yvonne.
I'm going to harp on this whole content staging thing because I really think that it's something that Content Publisher has a lot of potential for. We've figured out how to stage code. We've figured out how to release it in a reliable fashion and version it. And like Pantheon does a great job of going from environment to environment. Like it's a no-brainer. There's a best practice. But content is freaking hard. It's really hard to do that in code and in a CMS. And there are great modules out there. Don't get me wrong, there are. But doing it en masse and doing it in a larger organization with lots of documents requires new skills. It requires new management tools. And it makes sense to me that Google Docs that everybody's using and already knows how to manage, and you can put in folders, you can tweak the permissions so that it's just a certain number of people for the blog and just a certain number of people for the commerce. Like that all makes sense. And the fact that there are approvals and that the content is the content and that's the source of truth, and then you can press a button and it goes to your website, like that's staging. Like you guys have inadvertently, maybe on purpose, built a staging environment for content. And so like that's what I'm really excited about. And then your comment about migrations, that's almost the same thing, right? Because if you have an old site that you have new content for, that you're going to have to put on the new website, on the redesigned website, well, you're probably going to write all that new content in Google Docs. So you're kind of staging it there as well in the migration. So I think those two are linked. That's what I'm really excited about.
Thank you. Anything you'd want to add there, Ellie?
No, I agree with what Yvonne is saying. I was actually going to bring up just about the migrations as well. So I think we covered that.
Awesome.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Well, Ellie won the last question. Now you win this question.
Okay, it's not a competition, but we're equal.
Okay, how do you ensure the quality and security of the content being published? Like, does the content publisher's governance feature effectively catch formatting errors, accessibility issues, non-compliant styles before the content goes live? Like, how could you see using this to ensure the quality and security of the content being published?
Yeah, I mean, on the quality side, it's usually about multiple layers of review. We've got an editor checking for clarity and tone, subject matter experts validating accuracy, and sometimes accessibility reviews before it goes live. But there's really nothing's automated really with any of that. And so, yeah, there's definitely like margin for error in all of those review processes. So for us, I mean, the goal is just to, make sure that what's published really aligns with the brand and compliance standards. So all I can say is like, we do our best, we have to just put it through the review process and hope that we caught everything. And then security, I mean, I think that just comes down to permissions and environmental control. Again, going back to like the clear roles defined in who can do what, who's reviewing, who's publishing. Plus, to Yvonne's point, a stable staging environment where changes can be reviewed safely before hitting production. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, I think it's really, a balance of structure and trust, giving authors freedom to create while having also the guardrails that protect the integrity of the live site.
Yeah.
Everything you said, Ellie, the only addition I would say is I think that there's that familiarity again, where there are not a whole lot of people who might be familiar with the permissions of the CMS in their organization, but they've used Google Docs a million times. And if there's if there's permissions that need to be set on a certain part of who can make changes to documents, that becomes more familiar to them when they're managing the Google Docs part of permissions. And then as long as that connection is set up once and the right way, that makes a whole lot of sense and it's much easier too.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Okay, this is our final question here. And then we do have some audience questions I want to make sure that we take. So this can be, as quick or not or slow as you would like it to be. But how do you see the ROI for content publisher and what's your favorite feature? I mean, I think you've touched on much of this, but just to kind of tie a bow on it.
The ROI is time savings. That's number one. And number two, the content staging part, like being able to have that as a brand new feature and a brand new path of going down that's going to improve our clients' experience. My favorite feature is the built-in integration of the Gemini and being able to get all different options for tags, for descriptions, for things that I'm already using Gemini. Gemini already knows the documents that I'm creating, and for it to be able to analyze this particular document and have only access to that document and generate those tags, that's great. That's my favorite feature.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite feature too, actually. But I was going to also say, just generally speaking, just being able to work in Google Docs to publish versus the CMS editor. That's like a great feature in itself because it's meeting, like you've said, meeting marketers where they are. It's where we work. We're not having to do all this other stuff and toggle between different tools. And, I think, and it's all in the collaboration aspect of it for sure. It's just, I would say overall, just way less stressful to use. And I really like, the AI generated metadata and the SEO optimization. And being able to drop images like right into the Google Doc and adding the alt text right there. A lot of times what I'm doing is putting in an image in our article, and then I'll drop the image in ChatGPT or Gemini and say, please generate alt text to be quick, but it's still like this all back and forth. But in terms of ROI, definitely, I agree. Time savings, I think, is the biggest ROI. But I also think the reduced margin of error and just better governance and fewer compliance risks. There's so much room for error with the copy and pasting.
You know what? You just made me think of something else for ROI. There's some organizations that don't standardize on one CMS. Universities that are large are a good example. They'll have WordPress sites and Drupal sites. So a potential ROI here is simplifying the editing experience for everyone at the university. They know they have to go to Google Docs, and when they hit publish, really doesn't matter if it goes to Drupal or to WordPress. They don't have to learn a different interface. They don't have to spend time in different places doing different trainings. The university is going to spend less time training those people on the particular different tools that they have. They just have to worry about Google Docs. So that's another potential ROI there.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I hadn't thought about that one too carefully before, but that's a great one. I know we have some questions from the audience too. I don't know if we want to kind of turn it over to those, Olivia.
Yes, I just have to say that was a really great conversation. And as someone who does work for a digital publisher, I found a lot of that information really insightful and helpful for even my own everyday use. So thank you all. But yes, we have a lot of Q&A, so let's get into it. And kind of just whoever wants to take the first stab at it, go for it. All right, the first one let's do is from Madeline. I think one of the problems with approvals is setting a limit. Is it fair to set a cap/limit, and how do you do this when it hasn't been this way and people are resistant to change?
Are you talking about a cap on the limit of revisions?
I think so. I think that was like earlier on in the webinar.
Or maybe the cap.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, absolutely. I think it's fine to set a cap on the number of revisions.
Yeah, Madeline, let us know if you have more clarifications for that question. Yes, the cap on number of revisions.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I want to add one thing on that, though. One thing I would do, though, is just be sure to, when you're going into the process, make sure whoever your author is or your reviewers are, like that you have that like laid out as a step-by-step process. Like that is your process so that they're aware and not wondering like why you're cutting them off.
And I don't know. This is take or leave this. This may or may not work, but I also think, one of Content Publisher's features is approvals built in. So like certain people have to approve something before it goes live. Like literally it is not, you can write in Google Docs, submit it through Content Publisher to like go online, but it's not going to be online unless an admin has approved it, unless someone has approved it. And another way, which again, I don't know, this depends on the setup of your organization, right? But another way is just to, when the question comes is like, why isn't this live yet? This isn't live yet. Like, where are we with this? It's like, this is in your queue to approve. And really making that sort of a hard, fast boundary and gate. And I think then when there is that sort of serious gate in place, maybe less likely there will be post-publish versions again and again, because that person understands like this will not go live without your approval and kind of blessing of this one, for what it's worth. Might not work. But.
Good insight. Next one is, does Content Publisher work with Microsoft Word?
It does not today, but it will in the first half of 2026, because that is the biggest question that we get from customers who are not Google Docs users. They're like, yeah, we would use this, but we're a Microsoft shop. So it's coming.
Yes.
Okay, so to build off the previous question from Colin, which has already been answered, and it had to do with the number of templates in their site and can the publisher deal with more complicated layouts? Scott had answered for them, but this question builds off that. What does the level of effort look like for hooking up a new template?
It depends on the complexity of your template, but it should not be difficult, and also on the CMS that you're using, because that's going to kind of inform that. But it shouldn't be a like insurmountable obstacle. It shouldn't be hard. I don't know what level of depth we want to give in that response, but
yeah, we can always come back to it too, or I know we have some people in the back who have more insight on that as well. We can reach out to you post the webinar. Okay, next question. I know we are short on time. If there are any embargo capability, let me reread that. Is there any embargo capability? We share content with stakeholders 2 weeks before we make it public. It means we have duplication to publish content for different timelines, so we don't overwrite existing content during the embargo period.
2 weeks before it means we have to do.
Isn't that a permission that you could probably set as administrators in Google Docs so that only the right people have the right publish permissions at the right time? And then you prevent changes by switching off and approving everything 2 weeks before, and then it just stays in that period of waiting to publish. Like that would be, like, I feel like this is a human problem that you could probably fix with Google Docs. This is not an integration question.
But you can also do it in you can do it in the admin panel in Content Publisher as well.
Yeah,
because
that's kind of what I was meaning. That's kind of what I meant, was like, it's a configuration, right?
Yeah. So like you would, I think in this scenario, you would set the approvals so that the admin who ultimately is responsible for pushing something live, like probably the dev, has that has that in their queue and understands they're not going to push it live until that time.
That works. I feel like we're on a brainstorming session right now, working through all the different programs.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And I know that there were some questions being answered in the chat, so there's a more clarifying answer for some of these questions coming directly to you. Let's see. I think we have time for one more, and then we'll call it for the day. For companies struggling with workflow breakages right now, what is the single most actionable first step they can take tomorrow to begin fixing their content bottleneck?
Yvonne or Ellie, do you want to take this? I can take it too.
No, you got it.
Okay. I think, obviously I'm going to say this, but I think you should try Content Publisher. You can use it in a playground environment, so you're not using it with your actual live site. Once you sign up for the free trial, there's no commitment. You don't have to put in your credit card information. You can just try it in the playground environment and literally see what happens when I'm in a Google Doc and then I push content live to this fake site. What does that experience look like for me? And that I think can kind of get the wheels turning with, does this solve the kind of primary problems I'm facing, or what other solutions do I need to think about?
Love it. Anything else to add, Ellie or Yvonne, before we wrap up?
No, I think that was good.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for having us.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, that is all the time that we have for today. I want to thank Lucy, Yvonne, and Ellie for being here today, and for Pantheon for sponsoring today's webinar. And last but not least, I want to thank all of you in the audience for your time and attention today. We had a really great chat going on and a lot of great questions from all of you. Today's webinar was recorded, and you'll be receiving a link to that recording in a follow-up email, so keep an eye on your inbox for that. And in the meantime, thank you all once more, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.